John, when you say enough already, and I agree with you 100%, it could go to so many things. But let's talk about this raid and how this has pushed Trump into a higher standing, again, and ahead of the Republicans. He's a problem for the Republicans. You would think more Republicans would speak out and would defend the very departments that they think we Democrats want to dismantle.
Leslie, first off, thanks so much for having me back and all your kind words. I'm sorry to burden you with all of my handles, websites, and extraneous noise. So what do you do when an eye roll is not enough? I mean, this guy's malignant narcissism has extended into every aspect of our public life, even to the extent that the New York Times and the Washington Post and you and me sometimes call this a raid. And I write about this, to me, a raid is when a couple of H-60 helicopters swoop down into Pakistan and kill Osama bin Laden. That's a raid. The untouchables roll up to an Al Capone warehouse with axes and Thompson submachine guns, and they let loose, and that's a raid. This is not a raid. This is a legally, as you said, this is a legally executed search warrant that comes on the heels of the Justice Department, the National Archives, asking politely beginning in January if the Trump people might know the whereabouts of some missing documents. And, oh, yes, we're very cooperative. Well, the former president happens to have them under the bar at Mar-a-Lago. So the archive people freak out and they head down to Mar-a-Lago, and okay, not quite as bad as being in the bar, but they're essentially in a poorly secured storeroom. And they say, okay, two things. First, put better locks on the damn door. And second, they say, you still have some stuff and we want it back, and here's a list.
So, John, I want to interrupt you because what you're saying is 100% accurate. And I want people to hear this. What you are basically saying and what people need to know, regardless of their ideology, is this raid, which is not a raid, this search warrant that was served would not have come about. It was preventable because they just didn't do what was asked, which is give this stuff back and the other stuff, store it better, more securely, better locking system, better placement.
That's exactly right, Leslie. And to follow the timeline, so first they ask politely, and then all of a sudden the communication slows down and stops. And so I think rather reluctantly, because who would want to do that, they issue a subpoena. So now they've got the force of law and this is back in March, I think. And now they have the force of law that is saying, hey, you need to follow the law because, after all, no man is above the law. And because we are a country that's based on the rule of law, you need to hand those documents over, at which point he actually says, those are my documents, which shouldn't surprise anybody. And he refuses to hand them over. It escalates, they argue, and ultimately it results in a federal judge issuing a search warrant. And that's where we are today. Oh, I guess yesterday in right out of chapter 1 of the Trump playbook, he sues the government because, man, this guy likes to sue people. And he makes all these absolutely outrageous claims about who owns these documents. Oh, ex-presidents, they always have access to those documents. Well, yeah, they go to a national archive site that's approved, and they use the documents to write their memoirs. And he's tried his typical range of stupid excuses. But the thing is, and this drives me nuts, he uses these excuses to fundraise, and there was a point last week where he was raising $1 million a day from these, sad but true, from these underinformed, probably Fox News and conservative talk radio audience who just can't wait to throw more money at him.
You're reading my mind because I wanted to go into the allegations of the political nature of this. Of course, people are saying Merrick Garland, the Department of Justice, is Joe Biden's DOJ, because we have seen Department of Justices pretty much be the president's DOJ, like in the last administration.
Right.
But when we look at this, I say it's not political, because sadly, it's helping Donald Trump politically, to your point, with the fundraising. And then when you see some polls that have come out in the past couple of days showing that he has gone ahead popularity wise, more people are liking Trump again than the GOP. That's a problem for the GOP, because then more of, sadly, these Trump-backed candidates can get in, and they're extreme. And Democrats have seen this happen too, but Republicans more so. Republicans have seen 2012 would be an example. And when you put extreme candidates out there, it can backfire. And this tsunami you're expecting for Democrats may not be as certain in the midterms or in the next election, the general election.
That's absolutely true. And, if you're going to give him and his sort of executive staff credit for anything, it should be that they are world-class Olympic gold medalists in grifting. I mean, they are such grifters. It's unbelievable to me what they can fundraise off of. I'm looking in my old home state of Georgia, and I'm watching the barely comprehensible Herschel Walker. And hey, I lived there in 1980 when the Georgia Bulldogs won the national championship on his back. And, that was wonderful. But it's a real problem, Leslie, in the South, from which I herald. College football is almost as big as the Southern Baptist Conference. I mean, it is a religion. The Southeastern Conference has a tendency to overwhelm the thought processes of otherwise intelligent Southerners. And that's how you wind up with a senator from Alabama who is the former football coach of Auburn, which is really the only credential that you need to get elected to the Senate there. And it turns out that Tommy Tuberville doesn't know, after he's elected, by the way, to the Senate, he can't identify the three branches of government. So it shouldn't surprise anyone that Herschel Walker, who has never lived in the state of Georgia as an adult, after college, he moved to Dallas, Texas. He's never lived in Georgia since. And all of a sudden,
like Dr. Oz, who doesn't live in Pennsylvania.
Exactly. And they can't laud him enough. And they're so thrilled that Herschel's running for office. And you listen to this guy talk, and it's a word salad.